Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to create some mini wax seal embellishments using the new Gorgeous You mini wax seals. So I have 4 of them here. I have the butterfly, bow, heart, and flower, and they're really, really tiny compared to the regular round wax seal. So they're really fun to create some different embellishments with. So I'm going to bring out one of the regular wax seal or round wax seal stamps in just a moment so that you can see the difference between the two of them. So this is a fun way to create some mini wax seals that are a little bit tinier, a little bit daintier. And I'm going to create a card with each one of them. So there's the difference between the two, and you can see there's quite a difference. So these ones, the wax seal is right on the handle. They're not screw off like the other ones. And they do fit into the Spellbinders wax storage or the Spellbinders storage. And I love the fact that those storage cases have pieces that you can pull out and you can customize them. I'm also going to be using my DIY deck, and this is the card that I chose for inspiration, for color palette inspiration for the cards that I'm going to create. So I have 5 different colors here. I like to mix and match my DIY deck with my color swatch wheel color swatch wheel die and stamp set so that I can expand on the color palette, because you can see I've picked 5 different pieces here, 5 different colors here, and these are Spellbinders cardstocks, but you can easily create and expand that color palette and create more than one color palette from each card, and I love the fact that you can actually do that. So I have 5 colors on my DIY deck, and I created a couple extra palettes that I will put on my book ring and keep them for future projects. So to start off, I'm going to create the wax seals. I have the wax seal starter kit here. I've just lit the tea light and have that warming up. Now I want to create 3 different colors of wax seals, and I'm going to do all 4 of the seals in each of the colors. I have an idea of which color I want to do for each card that I have planned, but sometimes in the middle of creating, I change my mind and change colors on something just because I have a different idea, or I think something's going to look better once I see the actual thing done. And those extra wax seals that I'm going to create, I can save them for future projects. If by chance at some point I'm never going to use this, I can always re-wax or remelt it and create another seal with it. So it's not going to go to waste if I create some extra ones. It's just going to save time for this particular project because I know that I will have all of them done and ready to go. So the starter kit has this silicone mat that is perfect for creating these wax seals. And because I have 4 different seals here, it's really easy to create them all at once. I can have the other ones cooling down while I'm creating new ones. For each one of these, I've used 6 wax beads, and I end up creating 5 different seals for my gold ones and my pink ones. And then the wax was actually quite a bit thicker, and I ended up only creating 4 seals with that one. And again, any of these extra ones, I'm just going to save them. I have a container that I have my wax beads in that I got from a local dollar store, and I save my extra wax seals in there as well, so that if I'm creating and all of a sudden I think I need a wax seal to finish my project, I have some already done. Between the different colors, because I don't want to mix these colors together, I just use some clean paper towel, and while that little scoop is totally wet, I clean it out totally. I also will clean some of the top of the little wax melter. I am very careful because I have an open flame there to make sure that paper towel doesn't go anywhere near that open flame. So you do want to be careful about that. Typically, I don't clean that piece off until I'm completely done and that tea light is no longer lit, but I do clean it during this video simply because there's a little bit of wax buildup. When you pour out of that little scoop, some of it's going to run down the side, and I'm trying to avoid it going into the candle. Sometimes it does, and it doesn't really affect it too much. So I've used 2 different wax mixes here. I've used the pink wax mix or pink mix beads, and I also used the basic wax mix. Now the pink one is where I got the pink colors from, and I chose 2 different pinks there. I end up not using them on the card because they're a little bit of a different shade from the cardstock colors I've chose, and in the end I just didn't like them with the card, so I end up only using the black and the gold ones, and those are from the basic wax bead mix. You can see how quickly these wax seals come together. And there is a couple during there that I haven't poured quite enough wax, so I'll just put it right back into the scoop and remelt it and redo it right away. It's the easiest way to do it rather than saving one that I just don't like right off the bat. It's really easy. So here's where I realized that that black wax was quite a bit thicker. So I poured some for that first seal. As soon as I pressed that seal down, there wasn't quite enough wax there. I didn't really like it. So I end up pouring another one. So it's really quick and easy while you are busy with this and while you have that tea light lit, while you have the wax hot, to easily and quickly remelt those little wax beads to redo what you don't actually like. Now, anytime I'm doing these wax beads, I have a couple toothpicks that I just use to mix that wax in the pot, and then I'll clean it off the side of that little scoop there, just to make sure that I have everything melted. I can make sure that everything is melted and I don't have chunks of wax in there. And I also use my silicone spoons often, and it works well to clean off the excess of that wax from that scoop. And then because it's silicone, once that wax dries, I just pick that off and I'll put that right into my bins with my wax beads, and I will reuse those pieces so those don't go to waste either. For my first card, I want to use this Bloom Wildly press plate set. This is a new one from one of the releases this week, and I really, really like it. So I use it in a video where I'm doing some alcohol ink for beginners. For this video, I wanted to do some foiling, and more specifically, I'm going to do some foil resist. So I have the satin or pink satin glimmer foil. This comes in the pastel satin combination pack or variety pack. I have my glimmer machine hot. I put my plates where I want them to go, put that foil with the pretty side down, and I'm foiling right on Hammermill Cardstock. And just like I do regularly when I do glimmer foiling, I pull out my solid hot foil plate and solid hot foil the excess of the foil. I will be using it in my card today. Sometimes I end up not using it and I just save those cardstock pieces. Sometimes I end up using those cardstock pieces to die cut. So there's a few different ways that I like to use those pieces, but having that excess foil foiled onto cardstock, it's much easier to save that and store it on that cardstock than it is to just store those negative foil pieces. So I could have left this background white. It was beautiful with those pink flowers on the white, but I really wanted to keep with the color palette from the DIY deck. So I'm doing some ink blending on the background with some black soot distress ink. Now this foil is fairly transparent. You might have been able to see it when I was cutting it off of the roll. So it wouldn't really work to use this foil on black cardstock. I don't think it would show up this bright pink or this clear pink. I think you would get some darkening from black cardstock. So if you wanted to use this foil and have it look like it's on black cardstock, this is definitely the way to do it. Foil it onto some Hammermill cardstock and then do your ink blending, and that foil will resist that ink as long as it's dye ink and not permanent ink. So that ink blended foiled piece that I did, I trimmed that to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And the solid hot foil piece, I trimmed that to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So those are all the same sizes that I'm using for all of the cards that I'm creating today. I wanted the focal point to be the image piece and just have the mat around it as just kind of a little tiny frame. So even though when I did my solid hot foiling, there is the stems that go all the way out to the edges. So if you look carefully at my mat, you see a tiny little piece of white there. I don't mind that, and it's so minimal to me that I don't think anyone would really notice. But you could, if you wanted, say, take a Copic marker that matches perfectly and color that in if that really bothered you. The last thing I did was I chose one of the gold seals, and this one I did the bow one. And I glued that on there. Once that glue was dry, I took a black Posca pen and I colored that bow in order to have that coordinate with the black background. I kind of thought that just the flowers and then the black and then a gold mini seal, it looked off. It didn't look like it coordinated well until I took that black Posca marker and blended it with it. For my second card, I have some Hammermill cardstock here that I taped into the top of my Better Press system. And I'm using the Label Silhouettes press plate set to create a background for some die cut flowers. I also chose one of the sentiments from that Bloom Wildly press plate set. You can see that I'm having a little bit of trouble here with my ink pad. It really wants to stick and suction up that press plate, and it keeps lifting it up. This often happens with lighter plates. I was kind of surprised that it was happening with that arched plate, but because it was solid and I was pressing fairly firmly so that I had a nice solid inking from that press plate, it was just kind of suctioning up and pulling that press plate up. So it's really easy to move those back in place. I just use my fingers on the side of the plate. I don't put it anywhere near any of the ink. I am done with that sentiment, so I leave that, or I take that off, and then I clean off the arch here. What I want to do is take one of the Lisa Horton metallic ink pads, and I chose solid gold to go with the gold accents that I'm doing with this particular color palette. And I just added a tiny little bit of that ink around the arch. Now, when I pull this off, so I put my clear plate onto the base, put it through my Platinum 6 machine to do the better pressing. When I pull this off, you can't really see the gold, but in person, it just adds a little bit of a gold shimmer around that arch when you tilt it into the light. So it's not in your face gold. It's really, really subtle, and it's really pretty because you tend to see more of the black, and then when you tilt in the light, you just get a little bit of a gold shimmer. So it's a great way to add some gold accents to things if you don't really want them to be in your face. For the florals for this card, I'm using the Little Blooms die set. This is one that came out, I think, nearly a year ago, or maybe it was last summer. So it's been out for a while. It just creates some really pretty little blooms. Now, when I do wax seals, I tend to prefer them with floral clusters or floral bouquets, and then have that wax seal on the bottom of the stem. That's just my favorite way to use them. So I do florals in 2 cards, but I do them in different ways, and I use different floral sets because I just like them that way. So once I assemble my pieces here, and I already did my die cutting off screen, the flowers are really, really easy to assemble, and I do that with some Barely Art glue in a fine line bottle. I love using liquid glue because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So I can set all of those flowers to the side and work on my card base and let that glue sit and set before I start putting it onto the front of my card. So for this one, I did my matting exactly the same as I did for the first card. My black mat there is trimmed to 4 1/8 inch by 5 3/8 inches, and the Better Press image piece on the white I did at 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Typically when I'm doing my layers, I will put my acrylic block on top of there, and because I can see right through it, if I'm doing something that has a little bit of an arrangement on there, I will put that right on top of the acrylic block. It gives me an idea if I like the arrangement I have thought of in my head, and then I can tuck it to the side. I still have that whole arrangement. I know where everything is going to go, and I can easily glue it to the front of my card. So for this one, I have a bunch of these florals here, and I want to create a bit of a bouquet and then have that wax seal at the bottom, just kind of holding that bouquet together. In the end, my florals are a tiny little bit higher than I would have preferred. I would have preferred them being just a touch lower. One way to fix this would have been to die cut some more florals and kind of make my bouquet a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to add any more to it. So I just go with it. But like I said, in hindsight, I would start a tiny little bit lower so you see a little bit more of the top part of that arch. When I had done it on the acrylic block, I thought there was enough there, and I hadn't put all of my florals there. I thought there was enough room to be able to see that, but it is definitely a little bit higher on that arch. It's no big deal, and it's one of those things, we're always our own worst critic. So it could be just a me thing that thinks it should be a little bit lower. I just figured I'd share that. If I were to do it again, I'd do it a little bit lower. So you can see how quick and easy, because all of these floral die cuts are already put together, all the layers are put together, it makes it really, really easy to put in or to create this little bouquet. I've done a ton of these, so I'm really quite comfortable doing little floral bouquets with die cuts, and it's really easy when you have liquid glue to poke things in or tuck things in, especially the leaves that I do at the end. And then I use that same glue to glue down my wax seal. Now, because we're gluing down a wax seal and the wax seal is non-porous, it does take a little bit longer for that to dry. So I do wait for that to dry a little bit. The last step, I put some little bits of platinum stickles in the center of the tiniest little flowers. Those ones didn't actually have a flower center die cut to them. So that, when you die cut it, it die cuts a hole. So that just fills in that hole and just adds a little bit of sparkle and ties in the gold in yet another place. For my third card, I'm using the Gorgeous You perfume bottle. This is another one from a collection that came out this month. This is from the Gorgeous You collection. I just really think this perfume bottle die cut is unique and it's really quite feminine. So once again, I have all of my pieces die cut, but the center part of the bottle, I wanted to put a sentiment on. So I'm using the Gorgeous You sentiments, and these are the Flawless Sentiments press plate set. I picked one of them, put it in the bottom part of my Better Press system, and I do have my die cut beside it so that I can gauge how high or how low to put it to have it fairly centered in that die cut. If you wanted to make sure that you could make it perfectly centered, I would definitely recommend pressing that sentiment onto some cardstock before die cutting, because then it'd make it a little bit easier. But I wasn't really thinking about my sentiment when I was doing my die cutting, and it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that I probably should have done my sentiment first and then die cut the piece. No big deal. It's really easy to fix that. So with all of my pieces die cut already, it's really easy to layer them together. Now, when I was doing my color combinations, one of the alternate color combinations I had were these three pinks, which I'm using Tutu, Dahlia, and Wildberry. The black is Raven, and then for my green, I'm using Rainforest Cardstock. Now, one of my alternates, I added some beeswax cardstock, which is a yellow. I wanted some metallic accents in these cards, so I just chose some gold cardstock from the Treasured Gold Cardstock pack. This is a great way just to add that metallic accent. And that Treasured Gold Cardstock pack, it comes in 5 different finishes, so you can decide whether you want something shiny like I've chosen here or something matte. There's different ones to pick and choose to customize your color palette. And I thought these gold accents would work really, really well with some of the gold wax seals that I was creating here. So for this one here, I chose the flower wax seal, and I chose the black one. I forgot to mention it. For the second card, I chose the butterfly wax seal, and I had the gold one for that. So because I have all of my different seals already done, what you didn't see off screen is I did swap out some colors. One of them I had chosen to do a pink wax seal, one of the dark pink, but once I was done them, like I said, while I was creating them, I ended up not liking the color tone of that pink with my cardstock. It just didn't work for me, so I opted to not use those pink ones. For the background for this card, I'm using the Field Notes 3D embossing folder. Again, this is another one from a recent release. Really, any embossing folder would work for this. I just wanted to have some texture in the background. I have a black mat here that's trimmed to 4 1/8 inch by 5 3/8 inches. I do emboss my cardstock before trimming it down. That way, if I get any distortion on that embossing, I can trim it and make sure that I have an even mat around the edge. And then I took my gold pad that I used around that plate on the second card and just lightly brushed it onto that gold background. It just highlights some of those raised areas, and it ties the gold in from the gold bow and the gold top from my perfume bottle. I glued that onto my card base, and I do like to make sure to use a little bit of extra glue when I'm doing an embossed surface, just to make sure all of those recessed areas have glue on there so that they can coordinate well with it. Now, I did choose a black seal with this one, and I wanted to tie that gold in just a little bit more, so I'm using a gold Posca pen to color in that flower, just to add some gold highlights, and once again, adding a little bit of extra gold. Now, you might see that wax seal is moving while I'm adding that gold. That's because my glue is still wet. So once it's dried, that's the final result. You have a beautiful perfume bottle, and I love the addition of that wax seal on there. For my fourth card, I'm bringing in the Better Press Plate of the Month. I've used this for a few things other than my clubs video for this month. I just really love that script center. So I've already used it in a Wild Joker card. I'm not sure if that one's going to be live before this one, but if it's not, it'll be coming up soon. And then I'm using it for the background for this one. So for this one, I am using that postal edge as well as the script. So this is called Post Edge Expression. It's the Better Press Plate of the Month. If you're not familiar with the clubs, there are 10 different clubs to choose from. After the 10th of the following month, most of the clubs, if they have them in stock, are available for sale individually. So if you're not necessarily wanting to sign up for a club, this is a great way to do it. Just wait a little bit of time, and often you can purchase them individually and pick and choose which ones you want. So I used that postage edge with that Lisa Horton gold metallic pad, pressed it onto my Hammermill cardstock, and now I want to add that script part in the center plus one of the sentiments. So this one comes with a few different sentiments as well as dies to cut them out. I don't necessarily want to cut them out, but I do want it on the inside of my card. So I left that postage edge just to place my plates here. And then I'm using that same Black Soot Distress ink to ink my plates. Now you could easily use the Better Press ink, the black Better Press ink for this. The only reason I keep using the Black Soot is because I already used it for doing the Glimmer foil or the foil resist technique in my first video for my first card. So I already have it out, and rather than adding an additional ink to my supply list, this one, the Black Soot, will work for all of these cards anyway, so I just keep using that. Once I have this pressed piece done, I trim it down to 4 inches by 5¼ inches. This ends up being right about the edges of that postal edge, that gold piece that I did, so it just works perfectly. Then I trim my mat to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inches, and then I'm ready to start assembling my card. So I have a white card base here. I'm going to glue down that mat with the liquid glue, and then I'm going to glue down that pressed piece on there. Every time I glue something down, I typically will put my acrylic block on there just to hold everything flat. It keeps my hands free for doing other things, and it holds everything flat while my glue dries. I'll typically put that off to the side. Then I'm going to use the Gorgeous You Florals die set for the florals for this particular one. So I only have one flower here, and this one I chose because it's a little bit larger and it has 3 different layers to it. So I could use all 3 layers of the pink cardstock colors that I chose. Now, typically when I'm doing this particular one, I do the darkest color on the bottom layer, the medium color on the middle layer, and the lightest color on the top layer. I messed up when I was die cutting, and I kind of figured I would just go with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing stuff a little bit different from what you normally do. I wouldn't typically do the darker petal on the outside, but I really like the way that it looks. I'm just doing the single floral here because of my Better Press background, and then I added the heart seal to the bottom, and this one I chose to do gold. I think you could easily do black as well because of that black ink with the Better Press, as well as that black matte, but I wanted to tie in that gold with that gold edge. I thought it worked really, really well together. Then we have our third card with that beautiful perfume bottle, the embossed background, and that black wax seal on the top of the perfume bottle. Then our second card with those little bloom die cut florals and the gold wax seal on that one. And I think that one you could even do a little bit of better pressing on the background too if you wanted to add just a little bit more texture. Then our first card, which is the foil resist with that gold wax seal on the bottom. So these are just fun little tiny wax seals, perfect for adding different extra embellishments. And there's my color card there from the DIY deck for that color inspiration. And I love using those to get out of my color palette rut. They're a really great way to come up with different color palettes that you wouldn't normally expect or normally choose. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. Have a fantastic day.